Chapter 1. Peace Can Kill. Machiko stared at the blocky letters she'd just written on her blotter for a moment, then with a red pen commenced to illuminate the P, like a dusty old monk at work on some Gothic Bible. The cursor of her desk bulb computer blinked blindly at her. A stack of input crystals lay inert atop her in compartment. A mug of coffee, with a dead multi-legged, multi-eyed insect afloat on its turgid surface, sat to one side, beside a half-finished piece of dunk toast. The grey flat plains of Alistair 3 stretched out from her window like nothing squared. The warrior was bored. The memories of battle lived inside her, like bloody monuments to a time when she'd been truly alive, a time of danger, nobility, and yes, honour. She'd been a different person then. Buddha, how she'd changed. Ryushi had changed her. Her time with the Yautja pack had changed her. Both the better, she thought. At the core of her soul before, there had been shame. Her father had brought shame upon her Japanese family in Kyoto, embezzling from his company and then taking a coward's way out by killing himself before he could be jailed. "You are my flesh, Machiko," he had said. "You must restore the family's honour." And then his blood had spilled. Machiko Noguchi had tasted honour when the bugs had been loosed upon her town of Prosperity Wells, fighting alongside Dashande and his warriors. When she had joined the Hunter's Pack, she had literally become honour. But then, later, her humanity had called to her upon that miner's world, and although honour demanded that she fight against the Pack to save her Uman genetic kin, it had meant betraying her place in the Pack. And now, stuck back in the muddle of humanity again, she had lost that sense of honour, become merely quotidian. And oh yes, a little snarly, a little bitter. She stared morosely at her vague reflection in the computer screen. A few lines had formed beneath her dark Japanese eyes, and her short black hair was a little grey, but otherwise she was an attractive woman. Small-breasted, muscular, a compact beauty. It was lost on her, though. She longed for more. She sighed. You'd think the company would at least let her bring Attila on shift. At least then she'd have someone to talk to. She wouldn't have to resort to doodling. However, the last thing the company was interested in was her mental health. As far as they were concerned, she could drool and doodle here, just as long as she got her job done. Just as long as she stayed out of trouble. If only they didn't have that contract hanging over her like the sword of Damocles. If only she had her money, a FTL ship, a business plan. If only. A high-pitched voice from a grill moulded into the framework of the desk beside the computer facet interrupted her reverie. "Miss Noguchi?" She started, then immediately realised who it was. How many times had she wished she could yank this infernal radio comm from its mooring and toss it into the garbage blaster? Freedom would break out. Peace from the incessant whine of the planet's company president. A man who made certified anal retentive seem relaxed and carefree. "Yes, Mr. Darkins. How's that oversheet coming?" "It's going well." "Good. Glad to hear it. I need not remind you that it's due in my office at the end of the week. Company heads are expecting a subspace transmission then, and a comprehensive one. I trust that it will be a better job than last time. I think it will satisfy them." "Good. Glad to hear it. You've got an important job, Miss Noguchi. An important job on an important planet." The transmission ended with a faint buzzing sound like the annoying song of a rat fly. Sure. Important her butt. Alistair 3, also known as Doc's World, was a planet with a perfect rotation, a perfect distance from the sun, a perfect atmosphere. Perfect, that was, for a blandly uniform surface, with bland cattle-like grazers on its vast plains, few mountain ranges. Its weather was boring, its oceans were dull and lustreless. All its specifics were the epitome of monotony. One of these days humans from other planets would get around to fully populating this planet, but for right now there were far more appealing planets to go to, with much less distance between them and the rest of the human part of the galaxy. What interested the corporation enough to dip its tentacles down into Doc's World, named after one of the men who discovered it, Doc Warden, an alcoholic ne'er-do-well whose ship had gotten lost and whose comment on Alistair 3 was, "Makes me want another drink," was simple. The mining. Not that Doc's world had anything like rubies or diamonds or unusual precious gems. No, what it had was Narcon ore, a curious grade of ore created by Alistair III's unique mineral vulcanization process, which the corporation liked to use in its starship engines. Thus it had set up this Blakean dark satanic mill to mine and process said ore, then to transport it to satellites and moons where the shipbuilding was accomplished. Almost 10,000 people lived here in Solitaire City. Many were miners who took a daily troop train 20 miles south to a mountain range where they worked. Many were the miners' companions, who often as not went with them. A few were supervisors and managers. A few more were bureaucrats. Machiko was one of those last few, albeit on a top echelon, and she loathed it. And to think of what her past had been. To think that she had once run with a predator pack. Oh, how the mighty had fallen. She sighed and tapped up the spreadsheet. She began to examine the data that had been entered by others, and to send the computer through its analytic paces so that the corporation would have the precious vital statistics it needed. She stared a while at the screen, and then she put in another crystal, adding a new matrix of information. Juggle, juggle, toil, trouble. After a while, she saved her work. She sipped her coffee, and then she stared off into the plain plains of this nothing world, remembering what it had been like to fly with lightning in her wings.